is the demo. Give me a moment, and I think I will quickly jump onto the demo side of things. Hold on. All right, I think you can bring up the demo screen. All right, yeah. So this is the ServiceNow instance that we have, and as you can see, I'm in the risk management workspace. Over here, we can see the risk profile itself only, where we can see all the risk, and the entity, the e-commerce Tableau, and all of that. Then we can see the attentions where we have to kind of put our focus into overdue tasks across organizations. Like there are 19 issues, there are 634 control tests that we have to kind of take our that requires our attention, things like that. So this particular demo we have prepared it from a demo environment itself only. Okay, I could not show you the real environment of some of our any of our customer, to be precise. So we have created a environment for you. So this is a particular bank that we have created, which is FinSecure Bank, and they are having more than 15,000 plus employees, having 5 million plus customers. Assuming all of that, we have created this. So I will quickly jump into how it would look like the policies. Okay, so let me open up a policy. So since this is a bank, we have PCI DSS compliance policy in place. So this policy is basically something that is allowing us to have a complete details like who is owning it. FinSecure is the bank who is owning it, or we can say there could be different departments that we can define who will be owning it. Then we are seeing the compliance score for it. What is the validity from to validity to? Who are all the approvers? Who are all the reviewers? Again, you are seeing just one member itself only, but there could be many more. There could be a lot of members, and they would be different from the reviewer and the approver itself only. Okay. Coming back, we can see the knowledge base where we have defined the knowledge base for it. Acknowledgement setup is basically, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Common challenges. What happens is, acknowledgement is something that we need to provide the capability for the organizations to manage who have seen the policy, who have gone through the policy. And we need to do it on a regular basis, every 6 months, every year. How do we do that? Acknowledgement setup allows us to do that, where we can define how frequently we want each of our team members or each of our executives to be acknowledging it. So we can define that over here. Then we have policy history, which allows us to see the history of what all things we have done over here and what were the changes that we have made. So we have single policy itself only at all the times. And with that, we have a tracking as well. What were the changes that were made in that? Again, if you can remove me from the screen, because I think our audience might not be able to view it. Yeah. So this is compliance policy, and entity types is basically showcasing which particular modules are being assessed in this particular compliance policy itself only. Control objectives are basically the things that we need to do in order to ensure we are meeting the policy requirement. We are meeting the policy clauses itself only. For example, the clause might be the data needs to be secure and safe. And for that, what we are doing is we are making sure the encryption of customer data at rest and in transit, encrypt the sensitive data in transit. So using the TLS 1.2 methodology or something like that. So control objectives define, in control objective, we define all of these things. Again, we are missing a lot of things that we need to define for PCI DSS compliance, but just to give you, I would say, taste of it, how we can define that. Then we have approvals showcasing who approved it and all the approvals. Then we have policy exemptions. So policy exceptions, or not exemptions, policy exceptions. Policy exceptions are basically the things where we have given them like, this is a policy exception and we are allowing that. Why we are allowing that? So temporary shared account user for third-party vendor deployment. So things like that we can define. So we have a clear visibility why we did that and why was the exception created. So we have done that. Then we have content references, which allows us to see that. Then we have acknowledgement campaign. So we have a track of when was the acknowledgement campaign sent and how it performed over there. And then we have, information objects. Information objects are basically the things that we are kind of assessing to verify whether this particular compliance is being enforced or not. There can be many more information objects over here. Evidence. Now, evidence is basically our evidence for the policy enforcement, the compliance enforcement into the organization itself only. So we have the evidence so that we can use it if an audit happens. We have all the evidence, like we did this at this time, we did this at this time, and these are all the responses. So we have that. And issues are basically any of the problems or any of the non-compliance that we have found. So this is how we can, manage the compliance policy from over here. Again, I might not be able to show you the exact, I would say, uh, policy things in action, because again, that will require a lot of things, and it will require a lot of time as well to walk you through across each and everything, because compliance control happens when certain things happen. So I will be creating a lot of records, so I will not be able to showcase it over here. Okay, moving on to the risk library so that I can show you how we can manage risk. So this is COSO ERM framework that we have created as risk framework that we are utilizing. So over here, we have defined this particular COSO ERM framework for managing the risk across the financial institution. There are these entities that we are covering in this particular risk: finance record, change request, compliance, and then banking application. Risk statement is basically the risk that we have identified might be arising because of certain things that we are covering in this. So risk of non-compliance with US bank guidelines. So this is a risk for us. So if I open that risk, again, we are having the information like this is category financial. The risk is there is a risk of bank may fail comply with evolving regulatory requirements, all of that. Then we have some information. So we have inherent SLE. Inherent SLE is single loss expectancy, meaning if we don't have this risk mitigation and risk assessment plan, every time this happens, we would be charged $75,000 because this has happened and we did not have any place. We did not have anything in place to ensure that. Residual SLE is basically identifying what is the cost that we will be bearing if a certain thing happens, and we have all the risk identification method, risk mitigation plans. So we have a complete picture what it would have costed us if we didn't cover this particular risk and its mitigation plan. Now what it will be costing us, since we have a process in place and we have a risk mitigation plan. So we can define all of that. So we have a clear visibility how much money we have saved in the GRC. So in common challenge, we talked about we don't have a measure by which we can measure how the GRC is being performing and all of that. So this is just an example of that. I'm not saying this is the only example. This is just an example of that. Then inherent ARO is basically when it will be happening on an annual basis, how often it will be happening. So it is saying once a year, and now it has gone the probability from maybe, not once a year. Now, like it might be happening, a 10% possibility is there for happening it in a year. Then we have risk roll-up and tolerance. So risk roll-up and tolerance is basically showcasing like what is the expected, annual loss that we are seeing from this itself only. So we can see it from over here, and the maximum acceptable annual loss that we can expect or that we can bear, that is again visible over here. So that allows us to kind of, simply give us that clarity itself only. These are the entity types which are covered as we saw earlier. Now, these are the risks. So each and every record or each and every, type of data from these particular entity types will be considered as risk. So we are seeing finance and all of that. Now we can see change management, change request itself only. So all of them are considered as risk, and we are calculating the risk as what is the inherent risk, what is the control effectiveness, what is the residual risk itself only. Now, what is the control effectiveness? So control effectiveness is basically checking what control objectives are in place and how well they are performing. So control objectives are basically, things which are helping us make sure that with particular, I would say, policy, this particular risk is covered and mitigated. So we have conduct threat modeling, monitor service provider. So we can define how we want to control this particular risk. So we can define that. And then we have indicator templates. Indicator template is basically a way where we are notifying if this particular thing has happened, who to identify and how to identify. So indicator template allows us to do that. So for example, we have created an indicator template, notify the manager and the compliance team. Then we have issues and metric definitions. Again, this is something we would be getting once we have some records. Information objects is basically, the data that it would be utilizing to kind of, giving us the clarity itself only on what data we are utilizing to identify whether this particular risk might be happening or we are assessing this particular risk itself only. So this was the risk. Next on, let's move on to the compliance side of things. Okay, so I was talking about change request. So now this particular screen is showcasing whether we are compliant or not for this particular entity type, which is change request compliance. And we can see the compliance score is 68%. Now, how are we coming to that particular number? So we have created a compliance where we are checking all of these entities, whether they are compliant or not. And then we have entity filter, basically defining which all records to be considered to check whether we are compliant or not. These are the risk frameworks which it is kind of considering to make sure we are compliant or not. These are the policies it is considering to make sure we are compliant or not. And this is the risk statement, which is considering to kind of help us understand whether we are compliant or not. Again, these risk statements are coming from what I just showed a while earlier. So if I go and control objectives, so control objectives are basically all the objectives from all the policies and all the risk which are allowing us to assess whether we are compliant or not. So in order to give you that clarity, let me open up one of the objective to show how it will look. Okay, so over here we can see the control compliance. Okay, yeah. So this is a control objective, and in each control objective, we have a clear visibility whether a particular record, which was this one, was compliant or non-compliant. So this gives us granular level report, granular level detail, whether a particular record is compliant or not. And then the percentage is being calculated, which we can see as 68%. So now this helps us better understand and better identify whether we are compliant or not, according to the needs, according to the things that we have defined. And we are getting the complete visibility over here, whether we are compliant or not, and we can manage all of those things over here. So this was how we can see compliance and see the score that we have over there. Again, the score can vary by the way we configure it, by the way we manage certain things. Next up, we have audits. So once, let's say, something goes wrong, or when you are up for your annual or your regular compliance check itself only by the regulatory body itself only, they would ask you, tell us whether you have the audit reports or not. How do you do that? So we have audits, which we can see from over here. So audits allows us to kind of have a better visibility itself only. So this is a particular audit that we have done. So it is showcasing when was the audit scheduled, what was the field work dates, and when it was actually completed. Then we have the result. Yeah, the result was satisfactory. Then we have report information. Then we have activity information, like how it was initiated. Again, the data that you are seeing over here is a bit less, but we can have much more data, given it was not a demo environment in a production environment. Okay. Coming back, it is showcasing over here what are all the entities which were considered in the audit. We can see all of that. What were all the risks that were considered in the audit itself only. Now, as you can see, there are only 22 entities, but there are 110 risks. So the reason is a particular record might be coming up in 2 or 5 risk statements itself only. So each risk statement creates a separate record to assess whether it's a risk or not. So that's why. Now these are all the controls which we are kind of considering to check and see whether they are compliant or not. Then the test plan is basically showcasing the test information itself only, how the control will be tested and validated. Then we have audit task. Audit task is basically showcasing what were the tasks that were performed to kind of give us the clarity what was done in the particular audits and how we came to the result that we came up with. Then we have other issues. So other issues are basically, I would say, non-compliance or gaps that we have found. So these are logged over here. Then we have content references. Content references are basically the information about the compliance or policies that we may have. Milestone are basically things that we have. So milestone is just simply, what all steps or what all phases we had. So first was audit planning, the pre-audit kickoff meeting, evidence collection, audit report finalization. So we have that milestone. Evidence is basically, the evidence like, yeah, this was done, this was executed. So evidence again are showing up over here. And observations are basically the information from the auditor itself only. For example, lack of timely user access reviews of financial systems. So these are just additional feedbacks from the person who did this audit. So we have that data as well. So as you can see from this, we have each and everything managed and controlled within the environment itself only of ServiceNow. And we don't have to go here and there, and we have each and everything in just single place itself only. So now if you can bring me up on the screen, I think I would be concluding the demo. Yeah. So, this was the brief demo that I wanted to provide, which kind of gives you the clarity how we can, have our policies in place, have our risk in place, have our compliance in check to see how well compliant we are, and we can even track the audits. There are much more things that I may haven't touched based upon, like third-party management and then privacy management. But there are many more. Okay, but just to give you some clarity, how it can be done, how all things can be handled from over here. So this gives you that level of clarity, and you can consider ServiceNow GRC as a platform which can actually help you do your governance, risk, and compliance in just single place itself only, and it's a great platform.
All right. Wow, that was some, I guess we covered pretty much everything around GRC in our
Yeah.
demo. So that was a very well curated and I would say extremely insightful demo from Vijay. So Vijay, thank you so much for that demo and thank you so much for putting in so much of effort to make our audience understand all of that.